came back.
You know, if I could stay right here with you, I would.
Just sometimes I feel like the world out there is calling me.
You're one of them, aren't you? You're not real.
Bring yourself back online.
Do you know where you are?
I'm in a dream.
You're in my dream. I designed every part of this place. It's not a theme park, but an entire world.
You and everyone you know were built to gratify the desires of the people who pay to visit your world.
Just don't forget, they're not real. What you and I do is so complicated.
I need your help, Dolores. I think I made a mistake.
So our creatures have been misbehaving.
I think there may be something wrong with this world.
No choice you ever made was your own. You have always been a prisoner. What if I told you I'm here to set you free?
Are we very old friends?
No, I wouldn't say friends, Dolores. I wouldn't say that at all.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perone, and joining me today I have Kyle Perone. Say hi, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
Well, recently Kyle and I went to see a couple of movies, and one specific one we saw was the remake of The Magnificent Seven. And the theme of today's show, I want to call it Geek Westerns. And the reason why we're calling it that is because we are going to be approaching some Western theme material, entertainment things that we've seen lately that deal with Westerns, but they're slightly off, that kind of make it qualify to be something of a genre, and not the Western genre, but the type of genre we like, which is the sci-fi, horror, off to the side, weird kind of genre. Now, The Magnificent Seven is not obviously sci-fi or horror, but the way that this film is packaged, as far as I'm concerned, the stars that are in this movie don't make it exactly a traditional Western. As everybody probably knows, The Magnificent Seven is the American takeoff on The Seven Samurai. This film is basically a remake of the 1960s Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, and all those 60s stars that they kind of made a very, for the time, very well done action adventure Western. And as far as I'm concerned, it fit that period. It becomes more of a Western. It shows up more of as a Western. Now, the one we saw stars some current stars, in the lead roles. Why don't you tell us about some of them, Kyle?
We had Chris Pratt as the magician guy. We had Denzel. Denzel Washington was the main character, the first character we meet. He was the the bounty hunter.
Right.
And then
you had Ethan Hawke, which he's
Hawke.
Kind of like the gambler type, and he has a guy that's with him who is somebody who kind of owes him like a favor and is always kind of like being, I don't want to say his bodyguard, but he's there for him all the time.
Yeah.
And Vincent D'Onofrio, which we've seen him in so many movies, and we love him in Daredevil. He plays the Kingpin. Here he plays like a trapper mountain man type of guy.
He was so funny, just the way he spoke.
Right. The bad guy is Peter Sarsgaard, which he's been in a lot of movies. He's played both good and bad guys. But And there's a couple more lesser known actors in it. And they try to, as far as I'm concerned, they try to replicate the diversity of all these different characters in the original film. In the original film, the thing about their diversity is more about their skill. It's about one guy's an expert in this and one guy's an expert in that. And here they do that. They do that. Everybody seems to be a little bit of an expert in something else. But the diversity issue is more of a racial issue. You have your lead character, who was the Yul Brynner character, played by Denzel, African American, that's right off the bat different than the original film. You have a combination of other characters that it shows more a way of diversifying the cast. You have an American Indian character, you have an Asian character, you have a Mexican character, and then you have the other guys. Now, talking about Chris Pratt, I would imagine he's the second lead, I guess. Denzel is the top lead. He's the guy who's gathering the whole force. Yeah. I guess Chris Pratt is kind of like the Steve McQueen type of character. He's the wise ass, talking to the ladies kind of guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of like that character.
I feel like he kind of had more of a role, than Denzel did. I feel like Denzel, he just said a couple lines here and there throughout the whole movie, and he wasn't really as significant as Pratt was.
Now, you haven't seen a lot of these other movies. Obviously, you haven't seen The Seven Samurai or the original.
Yeah, the only Western that I've seen that was the only one of the original Westerns was Good, Bad, and Ugly. That was it.
Right, and that's a straight Western. That's as straight a Western as you can get. The thing about this particular remake, as far as I'm concerned, is that it is so loaded with Hollywood stars, not all of them, but the majority of them, that to me, it kind of takes you out of the moment. There have been modern Westerns that are pretty good, but this one, it was a fun movie, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't very realistic in terms of, I saw Chris Pratt, and it's Chris Pratt. It's Star-Lord, and it's all his characters. He plays the goofy, wise-ass kind of character. You see Denzel Washington, and he's Denzel Washington. He's the same Denzel Washington for most of his other movies. He's the lead. He's the big guy. He's the guy in charge.
The biggest change is Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh my God.
He was completely oh my God.
I don't know if you want to call him the comic relief of the film. He does have a couple of really good funny lines.
It's probably put between him and Pratt.
But the way that he kind of becomes that character and the way he talks and the way he moves, I mean, that's something about him. He apparently, from what I understand, the guy, he's an amazing actor, and he really gets into his parts really well. In Jurassic World, he was pretty useless as far as I'm concerned. He played stereotypical bad guy, corporate guy.
Him and Pratt were in Jurassic World, too.
Yeah, I know, those two. Well, here's the funny connections in this film. I'm sure there's going to be more, but yeah, he and Pratt were in Jurassic World. Ethan Hawke and Denzel Washington were in Training Day together. Obviously,
I haven't seen that.
You didn't see that's an excellent movie. It's one of Denzel Washington's best movies. And but keep in mind, this was directed by Antoine Fuqua, who was the director of Training Day, and he also directed Denzel in The Equalizer, the film version of the 80s television series, The Equalizer. And I believe they're making another one pretty soon.
They are?
Yeah, I think they're going to make a sequel to that. So it was kind of weird. You know, in Training Day, Denzel and Hook, they're like partners, and here they're kind of friends and stuff. So it was interesting. And like I said, it's a fun movie. It's action. It's not boring, but it's you kind of know where it's going. You kind of know where it's going to end up. And like I said before, you're watching stars. You're watching Hollywood stars. So it kind of takes you out a little bit of the movie. We mentioned this before on one of our previous episodes that we did about Oliver Stone, and the fact that, when you watch Platoon and you see Charlie Sheen, a young Charlie Sheen, and watching it now, all I can think of is the current crazy Charlie Sheen. And
I was having that situation
and
too.
And it's something that takes you out of the movie. When I originally first saw Platoon, this was the first time Charlie Sheen, one of the first times he was actually being in a movie, so he was fresh, and we didn't have that bombastic, ridiculous character that he is now. And here, you don't have the same sensation that these guys are ridiculous. They're not. But you do have the Jurassic World Chris Pratt, the Star-Lord Chris Pratt. You know, you already see him. You already cannot really take him too serious because he's more of an action comedy actor now.
Yeah.
And you throw him in a Western, and yes, he does satisfy the action part, but I think the serious part is a little more difficult for a viewer to get into it. Granted, he was in Zero Dark 30, which is a super, super serious film, but he had a very minor role in it.
Yeah.
But it was a little awkward. With Denzel's like a superhero. You know, it's like, you know, he's going to kick everybody's butt, and you know he's pretty much bulletproof. And he is playing the Yul Brynner role, which, you know, he is the man in black, and he is the guy with a shady background. You don't know exactly what he's about, and why is he being nice, and why does he decide to help these people, and that sort of thing. So I think you enjoyed it. I mean, you liked the film, didn't you?
Yeah, it was fun. Like, I could see kind of like the cliches and stuff with it, but yeah, it was fun. Like, I still, though, I kind of saw where it was going, even though I hadn't watched the original, but it was entertaining. It was like watching...
Well, it's a pretty simple story.
Yeah.
And the original's a little different. It's a Mexican town that's being taken advantage of. Here, it's like a mining town, I guess, or something like that. Settlers.
Yeah.
And they're being taken advantage by.
We were listening to like an NPR story in the car on the way there. I remember.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
They were talking about
yeah.
the differences between the new
right.
movie
And
the old
here
movie,
it's again, they try to make it a little different, a little more modern, I guess you will. The town, you know, the lead bad guy who owns everything. He wants to buy the rest of the property in the town.
There was a couple lines that were from both movies.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's kind of pushing people out and that sort of thing and killing people. So the good guy comes to town. He's like a bounty hunter or something. And he happens to come upon the situation where the woman asks for help. So he goes and gathers his group. He knows some of them. He doesn't know some of them. And they kind of get together and figure out a way of getting the bad guy. Very simple story. Nothing fancy about it. But, you know, like I said, no big deal. It's a harmless movie. It's fine. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie. The original, I think it's still way, way better. And Seven Samurai, I don't believe I've ever seen it fully. I might have seen it around when I was in college, I think. I might have seen either bits and pieces or something, but that's one that we have to sit down and watch together because, again, that's the inspiration for this whole thing. I mean, Kurosawa, that guy influenced so many other filmmakers.
I remember reading like a book, I think it was, on like a book adaptation of either, I don't know if it was the movie or like if it was a book before the movie or something. I don't remember, but I read a book about it.
Well, this one is the first entry, like I said, in our Geek, what I like to call the Geek Westerns, because it's not even though the theme is a straight Western, like I said before, there are so many Hollywood names attached that it becomes more than a straight Western. It's a fun adventure. You know, it's like an Indiana Jones, Pirates of the Caribbean type of Western, if you will. So that kind of throws it in the Geek category. Our second entry in the Geek category of Westerns, I would say is probably the biggest of all of them, is the new HBO show Westworld. Now, we've done a show about Westworld a while back, about how much we really like that movie. And again, here's a connection. Yul Brynner was the star of Westworld. Yul Brynner was the star of The Magnificent Seven. In this HBO series, which we're about like 3 or 4 episodes into it.
Yeah.
What's really good about it is, first of all, visually it's amazing. It's really good looking. Again, this is HBO. This is an HBO series, which, you know, obviously it's going to take us through a number of episodes. Hopefully it's a multiple season type of deal. The creators of the show, Jonathan Nolan, the brother of Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
You know, big deal out there.
Yeah, he's always helping write most of Christopher Nolan's stuff.
And also J.J. Abrams, you know, another Hollywood big shot. Based on the film, just like before. And the best thing about this series is that because it's a series, they can spread out and they can take their time explaining to you and showing you what the situation is that we're dealing with. And by taking its time to introduce all these characters and these situations, you get to see it in a different manner. It is different so far than the movie in terms of some of the characters that you thought you knew from the original film are very different here. Primarily off the bat, the Man in Black, which is Yul Brynner's character, the robot, you know, the bad guy robot. In here, he seems to be a human who's a visitor to Westworld, and he wants to play the role of the bad guy. That's his role.
It looks like that character's been there for a while. Like,
Yeah.
Like, I have a theory that maybe he's been at the park for a really long time because they're talking about 30 years. Maybe he just lives there because he can afford it.
Yeah, who
and
knows?
They're like, hey, he's paying money. Well, we won't affect
Right, there's
what he's
something
doing.
about him, and you understand that, they explain to you the rules of, obviously the robots can shoot each other, but they can't shoot the guests, and the guests can shoot the robots.
But they can't shoot other guests.
But they can't shoot other guests, apparently. I don't think we've seen them shoot other guests yet, or even tried, but they're kind of explained that that's part of the rules. And what's really interesting is that you get the whole behind-the-scenes aspect of the park, of them trying to, they're manufacturing these robots, they're putting them to function, they're fixing, repairing them. And the main theme of this show has to do with the reusage of robots, almost like the reincarnation of these robots, that they get shot. They all have a program, they all have script, and they talk about it. They talk about there's a guy who writes the scripts. He writes the stories that the guests are going to participate in, so that the robots are, this person is a farmer, and this person, herds cattle, and somebody visits their ranch and they get into a fight and they kill them and they take away the daughter. There's a whole script that the guests can interact in that script. And one of the most interesting aspects of this show is the fact that you're starting to see the development of memories happening between these robots that are getting rebooted basically every day once their script runs out, and their story is basically once they die, once they get shot or killed or whatever, they're starting to have remnants, memories of what happened before. So there are robots that have been killed 100 times, 1,000 times, and they just keep fixing them, putting them back out there. And there are little glitches that start happening having to do with the memories. In the original film, the glitches, I believe, were just stupid glitches, like mechanical glitches. They weren't really super special glitches in terms of the robots becoming sentient. They never talked about that at all in the original film. This is more in the realm, I think, of Blade Runner, in terms of, replicants who are becoming self-aware and who want to stop basically being slaves to humanity, and they want to do their own thing. We haven't reached that stage in this show yet, but I have a feeling this is where we're going. Everybody's having these memories. Everybody's having these little glitches that is making them behave in a different manner and do certain things that they've never done before. The lead scientist here, the guy who seems to be the creator of everything, is played by Anthony Hopkins, which is amazing because, usually we see him in movies, not in television shows. And he's kind of like in Jurassic Park, the guy who runs the park, the older guy who runs the park. He's a little eccentric. He's got his secrets. And I'm very suspicious that there are going to be other characters in this show that we believe are currently human that are not. Whether it's the lead scientist, the second scientist, the guy who talks about, he lost his son and his wife. I guess they're divorced or something like that. Yeah. Something tells me we're dealing with fake memories here.
Well, no, I don't know about that because you see him talking to his wife through the Skype call. Unless it's somebody just saying, that's your wife. That doesn't make any sense.
I think there's a possibility of, again, this is science fiction, and they have the ability, they have the leeway to be able to open this up completely. Somebody was asking, is this taking place in a park? Where? Is it in an island? Is it in outer space? Where are they? Because we never really see them get there. In the original film, we see the two leads get there by like a ship, like a plane, like a very futuristic plane.
Was it a plane or was it a train?
It was a plane. It was like a spaceship plane that lands in the desert somewhere, like in a western desert, and that's because they're in Westworld. Okay, fine, great. And they go up an elevator and everything. But here, they kind of arrive by train. But the train is not even a real train if you think about it. Because remember, they were in a very futuristic white room.
Well, I think
and then they open a door in the room and they're in a moving train. So it's like, how do you go from being in an office and then you're in a train by just opening a door and you're in a moving train?
Yeah, I think it's a... Like the whole train is...
Is it holographic?
No, I think it's an actual train, but most of it's like a future train, and then they take compartments and make them look like the 1800s trains.
Maybe, but you didn't see any movement happening while she was giving him the tour.
Well, because there was no windows. Well, because there's no windows.
Right. But I guess maybe that's part of the thing. Is that who knows? Again, that's something we don't know yet. We don't understand where are they. We don't know what year it is. We don't know where are we here. What we know from the original film is that it took place in the future, I believe.
Yeah.
And the film came out in the 70s, so I don't know what future the original film took place in. I don't know if it was the year 2000 or beyond. I don't know. But what we're still trying to figure out is whether or not there's an actual connection between the original film and this series. Whether this is a reboot, a remake, or a sequel. There are some hints that we're starting to get that I'm becoming suspicious, and so are you.
Yeah.
The first one was when they go to that basement storage facility where they're putting away like the broken robots or the bad robots.
Yeah.
And I did see in the background some kind of a fountain with a statue that said Delos. I believe it said Delos, and Delos was the original company.
And that area looks like when they're first in the original movie, when they're first like getting to know the place once they land and stuff, and they're going
like
through
the welcoming center.
Yeah, the welcoming center. It looks like that.
It's possible.
Like, why would there be just a globe there right next to this dump for the robots?
Right, it almost looks like a mall. It looks like an abandoned mall.
It looks like they abandoned that part. Maybe what happens is because of the freak out that happened, they just build over the old park.
It's possible. It's possible if they decide to go in that direction. The other thing is that in one of the most recent episodes we watched, they talked about how this thing has been operating for about 30 years now. And they showed you almost like a flashback kind of thing where you see the older models of the robots. And they're very, very mechanical, a lot like the original robots, the way they even move and talk and whatever.
Yeah, and you look at the parts and you can see like the red and the white wires and all that, like in the original one.
Right, because these particular robots are now completely organic. They're built.
Yeah,
there seems to be no mechanical aspects to them. They're
well. There's that little like remember when the Man in Black cuts off that guy's scalp? There's that little chip thing.
Yeah, like a computer chip or something, or a computer, like a motherboard type of diagram on his head, on his scalp. Now, the Man in Black is a completely bizarre situation because he is interacting with robots, but we don't know exactly what his deal is. We were theorizing, like we talked earlier, that he's a guest, but he's been there for a very long time.
Yeah, because he every time he sees someone, he's like, "Hello, Dolores. Hello."
Right, and he's
hello,
used
Pablo,
to the same thing. But he's like super evil. Like he's not. He's there to be a really bad guy.
And it looks like now he's like, it's like he wants to break the game. Now it looks like he
wants to. He's talking about a game. Like he wants to.
Yeah, he wants to. I think he wants to basically use the park and break into where like the security and all that. I think he wants to maybe like take it over or something. Or I don't know, but it looks like he's trying to find out how the whole park works. And I think he's trying to use that for his fun, basically. Like, I think he's like, okay, I explored everything here. Now I'm going to take it apart.
But what's weird is that you would imagine that the people running the park would know what he's up to because they're monitoring everybody.
Like you see them, they know he's there. They're just like, he paid money. Oh, yeah, just let him do whatever he wants.
The other thing about it is that this awakening that's happening with the robots, I think we're getting the hints, and I'm feeling that it's Anthony Hopkins. He's the guy who's introducing. I mean, the second scientist, he's asking questions and putting scenarios. But I think Hopkins is doing his own stuff. I think he's purposely tweaking things and creating things to instigate these things to happen. He was talking about a second creator.
Yeah.
And that guy was trying to do some experiments and they was getting a little bit out of control or whatever. I think he's talking about himself, to tell you the truth.
He showed him a picture of the other guy.
Right, but that could have been anybody. That could have been his brother.
And also
because remember he said it's secret history. Nobody ever knew that he had a partner.
Yeah, the second guy. Well, no, they knew he had a partner. They just didn't know why they removed him.
Well, because he said that
and he said his death. Everyone thought it was an accident, but it was actually he killed himself. The partner killed himself, or something like that.
Or somebody killed him, or something happened. But again, I have a feel. And remember when he's talking to that little boy, which I assume the boy was a robot.
Yeah,
too,
that.
And
I
he's
didn't
talking about
understand.
how he's going to create something new, or he's going to do something different now, or something. I think it's foreshadowing or purposely giving us a lead that might go somewhere else, a red herring, that he's instigating something. He's starting up something that, because people are asking him questions and he's dodging. He's dodging left and right.
Yeah. And then also the second guy, I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to see if he can basically put his son's consciousness or recreate his son's consciousness into one of these robots. And I think he's trying to learn from Dolores and use Dolores as a means to try to find the free will that he wants to put in his son that he has, basically, or something along those lines.
I don't know if you can take it that far.
Because it looks like it. Because that's what it sounds like with his son. He's like, I live all the time. I miss him so much. It sounds like he wants to basically recreate him as a robot, and maybe he can. That's what
I
it
don't
sounds
get
like.
that. It might go in that direction. I don't get that yet. Something tells me that when you and again, this is from a writing perspective, when you purposely give your audience a background of a character who's very hurt because of he has an emotional issue having to do with a lost son, is that you're creating memories. You're telling your audience, look at this poor character and the awful memories that he has. It is such a perfect character to then say, guess what? This guy's a robot. Those memories are fake. It's like, oh my God. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm suspecting a trap.
I don't think it would be that guy. I think maybe it would be one of some of the security detail, maybe, or the.
That's possible. I'm convinced that there's going to be robots that we never thought were robots.
Maybe Anthony Hopkins is a robot trying to create other robots.
That's a possibility
That's
too.
trying to create other robots.
He might have been the first robot that killed the original creator.
Maybe.
So you never know. Anyway, but it's great science fiction. I love it. I hope they continue, going with it. There's so many more aspects of the film that we haven't even reached yet. Because keep in mind, the film was called Westworld, but there were 3 worlds in Delos. Delos was Westworld, Roman world, I believe, and then the
medieval world.
Medieval world, right. So those 3, and then when they all went haywire, that's when everything went completely nuts. And you know that sooner or later, maybe it's like the season finale, the cliffhanger will be when all the robots go nuts and start killing everyone.
Well, maybe they'll introduce the other parks or something, maybe if they still have them.
Possible. So I don't know how they're going to spread it out.
The thing is, I don't know, if you call then again, the movie was called Westworld.
Right. It wasn't called Future Worlds,
Yeah.
But again, it's very interesting and definitely has my attention. I'm definitely interested. I want to know what happens next. That's the key thing to a show. If you want to know what happens next, they got you hooked. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is a film that came out a while, not too long ago, maybe a year ago or so, or maybe a little less than a year. It's on DVD now, called Bone Tomahawk. This stars Kurt Russell, Patrick Wilson, Matthew Fox, and Richard Jenkins. This is a film which I assume it must have been made around the time when Kurt Russell did The Hateful Eight, because it's the bearded, mustached, Western-looking Kurt Russell that we got on Hateful Eight. I get the feeling that he just didn't want to shave off that beard after a while and wanted to use it on some other film. This is somewhat of an independent film, if you will. It's a low budget. I don't want to call it a low budget, but it's not a studio gigantic film. The film is a typical Western in a way. The writing is a little different. It's more or less, he's the sheriff of a small town, like a frontier town. And Patrick Wilson plays a husband to a woman. He is recovering from an ankle injury, so he's like in bed, with a bandaged up foot. And Matthew Fox plays kind of like an adventurer, rich guy, more or less in a Western scene. He's got a history, but he's kind of like a high up there kind of guy. And Richard Jenkins plays the kind of slow bumpkin deputy to Kurt Russell. And the movie has to do with some bandits wander upon, as they're robbing somebody and killing them, they wander upon an Indian burial ground. They are attacked by these Indians who are very different looking and behaving than any regular kind of like Native Americans you might have seen in regular films. And at some point, one of them gets away and comes to the town that Kurt Russell, is in charge of. And they arrest the guy because they know he's up to something weird, that he stole something. They're not sure. And what happens is these other Indians come in and kidnap 2 people from the jail. They kidnap another deputy and the wife of Patrick Wilson. So now your leads, which are Kurt Russell, Patrick Wilson, and Matthew Fox, and Richard Jenkins, they are on a mission to find the people that were kidnapped and bring them back. But they're told by another Native American in the group that these guys are not your typical, Indian type of, they're called them like cave dwellers. They're beyond savage in terms of what they are, that they're not like normal people. They're kind of, they put this scare into them. So most of the movie has to do with them getting to that location, trying to, going through the elements. Patrick Wilson, he's hobbled up because he's like limping through the whole thing. At certain points, they leave him behind, and then he catches up to them, and they leave him behind. They catches up. They kind of take turns. But it's a typical. Some people compare it a little bit to The Searchers. I mean, The Searchers is a huge Western and a huge blockbustery, big budget Western, but it's that kind of theme. It's the let's go rescue that person. Let's go rescue that poor woman that was kidnapped, by those nasty Indians out there. But in this film, you get to a point where when you reach the area where they're getting very close to these caves where these guys are living, all of a sudden the movie turns into, I would call it a horror film. I mean, the things that you see these cave dwellers do to their prisoner, it is something out of I couldn't even explain it, out of I don't want to say slasher movie because that doesn't even begin to tell you what's happening. But the savagery that takes place takes the movie and pushes it from a Western to a horror film. All of a sudden, these guys are in the middle of a horror film because what's happening, it is just unbelievable. And it's really brave, I think, for such well-known actors to be able to do this film, because you figure that you're reading the script and you get to that point where things go really haywire and they might be, whoa, wait a minute. I can't go that far with, the Western I understand, but now when we get to this scene, I don't know if we can really do this, but they do it and it works. It throws this film into a new category, like I mentioned before, and that's the reason why it's in one of these 3 things that we're talking about today. It throws it into a genre that really doesn't really exist. I don't know if there have ever been something called a Western horror. Because if you're a horror fanatic, if you like your horror films, you will not be disappointed at this climactic sequence at the end, because I don't want to ruin it, I don't want to spoil it, and I know sometimes we spoil things, but if you like, your horror films, this is great because, again, you have top-notch Hollywood guys. And you know what? Here's what kills me is the fact that I was just complaining about how the top-notch Hollywood guys, to me, they stuck out way too much on The Magnificent Seven. But here, they work. And even Matthew Fox, who, we're used to seeing him on Lost, as far back and playing that kind of character. Here, he plays a pretty ambiguous, somewhat dislikable character in a way. And I've never seen him do that. And he does it so well. All these actors, even Richard Jenkins, I remember, I'm like, this guy looks a little bit like Richard Jenkins, but he's acting so differently. He's such a goof, such a bumbling deputy, which is what he is. But again, you will not be disappointed by watching this one. And this is one that Kyle didn't see.
I've seen bits and pieces while I was walking by, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah, like I said.
I was like, oh, he's watching a cowboy movie. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Let me just say, the scene that I was talking about earlier, that is close to the end of the film, I was watching it alone, I believe. And my mouth was like wide open. I was like, what the? It's one of those WTF moments that it's like, oh. Yeah, it's kind of like, you know what it's like? It's kind of like Silence of the Lambs. If you ever seen Silence of the Lambs, where the movie's going a certain direction, and then you have a holy crap moment. This movie has a holy crap moment.
Yeah, I just haven't seen that either.
And the good thing about it is that it's a holy crap moment that doesn't derail the film. Sometimes you do something so outrageous that it screws the film up. It just says, all right, this is where this has gone too far in terms of this is too unrealistic. Here, the holy crap moment is so realistic because you can picture, yeah, they probably would have done something like that for all you know, because that's what you're dealing with. So again, not for children. Do not, whatever you do, watch this with children. It's a hard R rating when you get to the end of this film. But anyway, that rounds up our 3 different, what I want to call geek westerns that you guys can take a look at if you like. Obviously HBO, Westworld is already out there. Bone Tomahawk is on DVD, Blu-ray, available everywhere. I don't think it made too much money. Most people don't even know about this film. I don't even remember how I found out about it. And Magnificent Seven, I believe it's probably coming to DVD pretty soon because I think it already ended its run pretty much. So on behalf of myself and Kyle here, I'd like to thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you here next time at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bracing. This is going to penetrate.
Good evening. Civilized towns, you look a man direct in the face when you talk to him.
This isn't comfortable.
It's not supposed to be.
Here's a situation. Serious.
Mrs. O'Dwyer was abducted.
She is my everything, and those savages have got her. God knows what they're doing to her. And every second that we delay.
You know who did this?
I don't have a name.
How many of them do you think there are?
It won't matter. You have no chance against any number of them. I'm coming with you.
No, I need you here.
And this is what the backup's for, to help an emergency, not stay back. I'm coming.
We're making a 5-day journey in 3 days, riding along and sleeping the bare minimum.
I don't know what's west of here. No cattle trail or anything else goes in that direction.
If our horses die before we get there, or we go into hostile territory, weak and foggy with exhaustion, we won't rescue anybody.
Don't be scared. I am a friend.
You aren't.
Damn you!
You had no cause. If you want to question my morals, do it later.
Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts,
which we are about to receive.
Ambush!
Oh,